Good evening.
Hi.
Hey, Paula.
Good evening. I'm actually obviously not on the Board of Public Health. I'm a member of the Council on Aging, and we're interested in your needs assessment. So we just wanted to listen to see what you all were doing on the health needs assessment. Is it okay? I won't participate in any way unless you want to ask me some questions, but is it okay if I join?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Just listen in.
Carrie
Carrie's
won't
not
be
gonna be able to-
attending the meeting today.
Excuse me?
Carrie won't be attending the meeting.
Right. She's not feeling well. And Paula and Jerry are here, and I think Kevin, there's Kevin. Hi, Kevin.
Okay.
Hey,
Hi.
Kev.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead and get started and call a meeting to order. We have for tonight's agenda, we have really just a couple things. One is after we review the minutes from the last meeting, we're going to talk a little bit about the community needs assessment. And Aday and Allison are going to lead that discussion for the RFPs that we got in. And then I think the bulk of the meeting will be around walking through the updated tobacco regulations and making decisions about changes on that document. And then we'll get an update on the coalition from Kevin, if there is one, some monthly updates from Aday, and if there's any public comment, and we'll wrap it up at that point. So without further ado, as Aday said, Carrie will not be attending tonight. So we'll start with the minutes from November 3rd. Everybody read those. They looked fine to me. Any
Me as well.
comments? No edits? Look good?
Yep. As always, Jackie, thank you.
As always, yes. So make a motion to adopt the minutes from our last meeting on November 3rd. Do I have a second? Paula? Roll call. Paula?
Yes.
Rick? Yes. Okay, so those minutes are adopted. So why don't I turn it over to Aday and Allison around the RFPs. You're
You're
on
on
mute.
mute, Ade.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Lopez. So we received one proposal for the community health needs assessment from Peer Associates LLC, a company based in Massachusetts. I believe each board member has had a chance to review the proposal. And from my understanding, the question now is if Peer Associates LLC meets our evaluation criteria. If they do, and the price is right, the next steps would be to invite them for an interview, check references after the interview, and award the contract if we're satisfied with their proposal. Allison, would you consider that a fair assessment of what the process entails?
You said it perfectly. Yeah. So if you like the firm, we can move forward. I don't have the pricing envelope with me. I've been out, I haven't been back in the office since I had COVID. So, but I will be able to go in and get it, and I will send it off to everybody when, next week.
Hope you're feeling better, Allison.
I'm 100 times better. Thank you very
Right.
much.
So, Jackie, would you be able to please put up the selection criteria and we can all go through it? All right. So, Allison, do you want to take the lead or should I go ahead?
You can go ahead if you're good with that.
Okay. So, the first question on here is, does the proposer have at least 2 years of experience in developing community health needs assessments and improvement assessments and the related implementation plans? And from reading their proposal, it appears that they do. And what do you all think?
I agree.
I would agree.
Great.
Okay. And Kevin, do you agree as well?
I do.
Okay. Next item on the list is the proposal must have completed at least one community health improvement assessment and provide evidence of such. And when I read through their proposal, they gave us a link to a community health needs assessment they conducted for the city, I believe it's the city of Manchester.
Manchester, New Hampshire, yeah.
Correct. And that to me satisfies the requirement. What do you all think?
My
I-
only, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
Okay.
Oh,
my only concern is that the one that they offered was not in Massachusetts.
Hmm.
And Massachusetts is so different from most other states. I mean, it's not a deal breaker as far as I'm concerned. It's just something that, bothered me a little bit.
Okay.
I did look at the Manchester, New Hampshire assessment that they did, and it was it looked to me pretty well done. There was a lot of data, a lot of good conclusions and recommendations. I agree that it's not in Massachusetts. In some ways, I think Manchester, New Hampshire is much bigger than Reading, and so it was a much bigger piece of work, and so that's encouraging that it was. I'd rather they give us an example, a large city and all that entails, as opposed to a small village out in Western Massachusetts that may
Right.
not show that they're up to it.
Manchester is much more diverse too.
Yes.
Can I interject, it's Allison Jenkins, for one moment? You didn't specify it had to be one from Mass. So we can't critique them now on whether or not it is from Mass, that it was done for Mass or for New Hampshire. if
Well,
that
that's why I
makes
said
sense.
it wasn't a deal breaker, because
You can't even, so I would just go on to the next item. We really can't discuss what we didn't ask for.
okay.
Okay.
Next item on the list, the proposal must be an organization with headquarters in Massachusetts. I think they met that
Yep.
criteria.
Yes.
And then the proposal must provide a list of communities and other entities where similar work has been conducted with references. I think they met that as well.
They did, yeah.
All right. Let's see. All right, going to the comparative evaluation criteria. Let's see. So the first one is the similar project experience. The firm should have experience in providing services for projects of similar size and scope as that requested by the town of Reading in this RFP. From my observation,
Hold on. Sorry, go ahead.
just from reading the proposal, I would think that would be in the highly advantageous category.
I'd agree.
I would agree.
Me too.
Next item, please. The firm should assign qualified personnel to this project. Resumes should be included. I think they did a great job of explaining the qualifications of the personnel. I did not see like an official resume, but
Right.
they did a great job of explaining their experience and qualifications. So I just based on my personal opinion, I would rate this as either highly advantageous or advantageous, but I'm leaning towards highly advantageous.
Well, I would say the description of the two people that would be leading the project, certainly their paragraph they provided was very positive for both of those individuals. I would say advantageous only in that they didn't
Is
include.
a resume.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. I agree with Rick.
Just to interject though, and maybe Allison can clear this up. Resume to me seems like it's a very loose term. They did give a description of the work and scope that they have done. One could define that as a resume.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Am I wrong in that, Allison?
No, I would agree with you there.
Okay.
If you have the same information pretty much presented, but not how you would typically look at a resume, you could still count that as a resume.
Okay.
What's the difference? I mean, I can read the difference between highly advantageous and advantageous, but from our perspective, is there any drawback to just saying advantageous? I mean, I think they'd be great, but they're 4.5 years in existence. That's not super long compared to many of the organizations like that we know do this, but they do look good. So I just don't know the difference.
So can I interject a minute?
Yeah.
This is Allison again. Typically, and hopefully what you always want to look for is you hope you get more than one proposal. So if you got more than one proposal, the law's really funny. It won't let you rate these 1 through 5 and then add up the points. It came up with this system which they think is much better, this highly advantageous. So typically it would be extremely meaningful to decipher between the two so that then when you compare the multiple firms, you know what you're really how you're feeling. You only have one firm in front of you. So I think it's really good to go through this process and make sure you're all kind of agreeing and make sure you're all comfortable or uncomfortable with this firm. But it's not as necessary to decipher it precisely. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, we've already gone through a couple. I guess I would lean towards advantageous for all of them, only because they are still relatively new. And if you look at, they've done one city, the city of Manchester, but one of the staff came from there. So had intimate knowledge of that city already. So, I mean, again, maybe semantics, but the way I look at it is they look good, but I don't know. Do you guys agree, or is this like?
No, I agree with you, Jerry. I think you bring up a good point.
Yeah, I did notice that relationship with
Yep.
Manchester was there, and so it does speak to that.
That's fine. I don't think it hurts the process at all. So I have no problem with either one of them.
Okay. Next is the firm should have favorable references from its clients. Yeah, they provided references, but we haven't called those references to confirm. They look pretty good on the proposal, but you know, hearing from them is different from looking good.
Right.
So I'm leaning towards advantageous for this.
You know, I don't think we can really rate this because we haven't seen the references. I mean, they
Right.
list who they are, but you know, there's no reference to look. So I'm presuming they're favorable, but I don't know, you know. So I think we can't, it's not that it's negative, it's just that we don't have, that wasn't distributed to us.
That makes sense. I think I would just put TBD on this.
Yeah.
but That
Yes.
to be determined.
Yeah, this to me is a big one that you'd really want to have a conversation with those references. I think that's really important.
Okay. Next item is the firm should provide a clear and comprehensive proposal, including an easy to follow and logical work plan. I think they did an excellent job,
They did.
and
Agreed.
I personally would rate this as highly advantageous.
Agreed.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree. Can I, just for the Nancy's sake and anybody else in the public that is watching this, what they're proposing, since not everybody has seen the proposal, is, and what the process is putting together a team from the town, working with them, who will initially help them do a few things. One is identify people to have one-on-one interviews around key health needs in the town. So this would be people like at the senior center or in other places to get, you know, one-on-one feedback. They would put together focus groups. Again, different focus groups for different sort of segments of interest to hear what people think is, you know, what the needs are, the health needs are in the town, and how they might be addressed. They would do a survey, a monkey survey that would be open, it looks like, to all members of the in the town who want to participate. They would also collect data from a lot of different sources, whether it's hospitals, the state, the federal government, as it relates to Reading, health-related data. And that would be the first part of this proposal. And then subsequently, they would process that information with the board and others to kind of get confirmation and agreement on you know, what are the important areas that we should be focusing on, and then help work with us and interested parties to develop a proposal for what action plan we might do over the next, I don't know what, 1, 2, 3 years to help improve the health issues that were identified through the data collection and discussions. And the process would start in February and conclude in November. So it's a fairly robust plan that they put forward in their proposal. Go ahead, Ade. Thank you.
Right. The next item is a presentation example of a completed community health improvement plan. And if you look at the Manchester, City of Manchester Community Health Needs Assessment they provided, I think they did a detailed job of showing us what they're proposing. And I would personally rate this as highly advantageous.
I agree.
Great.
Me too.
All right, so I will now defer to Allison to tell us what the next steps would be from here.
Sure. So are you all feeling comfortable enough to take a vote where this is the firm you want to move forward with, given a day gets good references back?
I would say so.
I think that given that this is our second round of RFPs, and we weren't really, we haven't gotten huge responses, and given the quality of this proposal, I'm certainly comfortable going with this firm in terms of an initial, taking a vote to proceed with the interview, the reference checks. Obviously, there's a financial negotiation, and if all those things work out, I personally would be comfortable going ahead with this firm. How do others feel?
I agree.
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Yep.
I thought it was an excellent proposal. It read better and better as you went through it, quite frankly. So I was really comfortable after reading it to go with this firm.
Okay.
How
My
would you,
question,
how exactly would you craft some kind of vote, though? Here, there's a couple of
Um,
balls still up in the air as far as money goes, references. So
So actually, I'm thinking that you don't, let's not take a formal vote. Let me get you the numbers next week. I'll scan their price proposal to everyone. And then a day can do the references, and we can set up an interview at your, whatever your next meeting is. And then you can decide after the interview on your agenda, or you can all think about it and put it on to a future agenda. And then once hypothetically you hire this firm, I send them a contract, a notice to proceed, get their insurance, and all of those items done for you.
That
sounds like a
good to me.
plan.
okay,
Yeah.
that sounds good. I mean, it doesn't really push them back too much on a timeline either. So
And I believe the proposal is good for, was it 30 days or 60 days? They listed it on the.
I
on the
think
proposal.
it's 60. I think
Okay.
it's 60.
So we
So
should be
this
able to get
should
everything
be-
done within
Yes.
the time
yes.
frame. Okay.
perfect. Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Thank you very much. I'm
Thank
gonna
you, Allison.
have a great evening.
Thanks,
Thank
Allison.
you.
Thank you. All right. So, next on tap is the update on the tobacco regulations. So if people, just to kind of remind people where we are, the town has a series of, a set of tobacco regulations. The state sort of updated regulations, I think 2 or 3 years ago. And this process we're doing is to do 2 things. One is to incorporate the state reg, change our regs so they're consistent with the new state regs. And then secondly, there are opportunities for the town to make specific policy decisions on certain areas. And so those would be the areas that we would be particularly discussing tonight. So the document that everybody got was the original document, and highlighted in yellow were the updated changes that made it consistent with the state regs. And then there were highlighted green areas for discussion. And so what we need to do tonight is to walk through the document and particularly focus on these 17 areas on the checklist and make decisions around those as the base document and the yellow highlights are already kind of either the base document is what currently exists. The yellow areas are things that are incorporated based on the new state laws. So, I think that this could be a long agenda item. I'm not sure how it's going to go. I do think we should probably limit ourselves to maybe an hour. And if we don't finish, we could continue at the next meeting. Perhaps we will finish, we'll see. Jackie, I would ask you, I know that you had tried to collect sort of in advance what people felt around these 17 items, and I don't know how much data we have. So we have Jerry and myself, but not Kevin or Paula. And
I
Carrie's-
did it, but apparently it didn't save.
Oh, okay. So why don't we go back to the document? And it looks like there are a lot of yeses there. I'm going to go back to the document and just kind of scroll through it. Do folks have any other thoughts or ideas about how we might address this over the next hour, other than going through page by page?
You want to go through the whole document or through just the checklist?
I want to. I think we can go through, since we don't have. I think what we're going to do is we're going to just go through those areas that the town has the opportunity to make a policy decision. So, and those are the specific 17 items here.
Right.
So why don't we, Jackie, can you put up the original document, or is this, do you have the whole document up there?
So this is the PDF version I'm sharing right now. I do have the Word doc open. It's just, I pulled this up just because to where you need to go in the document.
Well, I have my checklist, and so I can kind of direct us, I think.
So you want the Word doc up?
Well, let's see. So you went right to E6. Okay. Oh, you have it highlighted. So the first item on that checklist was what's highlighted in blue. And so I would say that, yes, we should include this as part of the regulations. And I think what we can do is the 4 board members can sort of, if we reach a consensus, we don't have to take a roll call vote on each one. If we all are in consensus, then Jackie will sort of track our decision-making process. And then we would have a revised, completed document to pass on to general counsel, town council, and we would probably vote on a document maybe next meeting if we complete it tonight.
Can I interject for a second?
Yes.
I just want to let everybody know that we have a tobacco control expert in the room. Maureen, she's here. And if you have questions, please feel free to ask, and she should be able to answer the questions.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't introduce you, Maureen. Okay, so again, is everybody okay with including item number 6 here in blue?
Yes.
Okay.
So before the whole thing, Rick, can I had a couple of questions. I didn't fill out the checklist just because as I read through it, I had more questions than I had answers for it. So one of the things, questions I had was, where did everything in green originate from?
Maureen, do you want to?
Yeah, so what our TA, Cheryl Sabara, our technical advisor from MTCP, what she did was she highlighted areas in yellow that were areas that were taken directly from the DPH regulations that were provided after the new state law was passed in late 2019. Some portions of which became effective 1/1/20 and some became effective 6/1/20. So yellow is, if you adopted those, that language, sometimes its definition changes. If you adopted that language, it would bring you up to the new state law. So your local regs would match new state law. And then at the same time, she, in green, she highlighted those areas which would be specific to your community. You know, I'll give you one example. I'm not on that page, but a cigar minimum price is not in the state law. You have it in your local reg. And one of the things that some of the communities around us have done, or across the state have done, is they've increased the minimum cigar price to kind of reflect, you know, changes in costs over the last 10 years or whatever since you first adopted it. So the minimum cigar prices, you know, they adopted an increase in minimum cigar prices. So that would be a local reg. So anything that would pertain to you that you might want to change would be in green. Anything in yellow is something that you might want to consider adopting, just so that your local regs match up with state law and make it easier for retailers and enforcement and you folks.
Yeah, okay, no, that's a good explanation. I appreciate that, Maureen. I knew where the yellow came from. I just wasn't sure where the green was originated from.
And truthfully, you know, for probably the most important part is to take a good look at the yellow, make sure, you know, and we did this in a previous meeting, but so you understand that yellow is new state law, and that's what we're enforcing. So that's already being enforced because state law trumps local regs.
Right.
And then if you want to do anything additional, then you look at the green.
Yep, got it. Thank you very much.
So, would you recommend that they adopt everything in yellow at this point and then just focus on green?
Yeah, you know, if you've read it and you're not uncomfortable with it, I would, because that's what we're doing. You know, that's the enforcement that we're doing. I do an inspection or a compliance check. I share the results with the day. If there's a violation, the state law level fine is assessed. So it's just a matter of making it cleaner and easier for people to not get confused, because then it has your state or your local regs matching state law. So my recommendation would be, yeah, you'd want to probably adopt everything in yellow.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I assumed from previous discussions that everything in yellow would be something we would adopt simply because it's consistent with the current state law. I mean, I don't think
Yes,
we
I
would be.
think we talked about that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So are we going through this, Rick? I know going through checklists, but there's more things in green.
Yeah, that on the
I
checklist.
feel like we should go right from definitions and work your way down. just as an easier mechanism to keep where we are.
Okay, that sounds like a good idea. Why don't we, Jackie, why don't we scroll starting from the top of the document, and what we can do is let's stop at every green item and yep. Okay, right there. So in terms of separate entrance, is adult, I'm presuming that this is so that we would expect adult-only retail tobacco stores to have a separate entrance, and focus entirely on tobacco, which is, I think, what this definition is trying to encourage.
You're correct. What happened in the early days of COVID, of vaping, not really early days, but say middle of the introduction of vape shops in our, in our state, some stores, a convenience store might decide, gee, I'd like to have a vape shop only, an adult only store. So they would just try to have two separate sections, maybe not even divided by anything more than a counter. And under the state law, to be an adult only store, you have to meet certain requirements. And the only way to meet those requirements would be to have a completely separate business. And to have a completely separate business, you have to have a separate entrance. So that's what that's addressing, basically. You're correct. It's just making sure that these are two distinct operations. They don't share the same cash register. They don't share the same invoices, all of that. It's a distinct business, and one operates as a family-friendly store, convenience store, and one operates as an adult-only store.
If everybody's okay with that.
Yeah, we don't have any such.
I don't.
You have no adult-only stores currently, and
Okay.
this would be to prevent, say, Cumberland Farms from deciding to take a whole end of their store and make it an adult-only
Gotcha.
area. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So I have no problem adopting that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The next item is just a definition of what blunt wrap is. And this is important only because later on in the document, there's the opportunity to prohibit blunt wrap. So I don't think this is particularly controversial. It's just a definition.
Clerical.
Okay. So
You're right. It does clarify the definition, but I think you already have a blunt wrap ban.
We do.
Yeah, you have a blunt wrap ban, but the blunt wrap definition that we did have wasn't as clear as this one is. We've had distributors deliver to stores products that are quasi blunt wraps, and we want to be really, have a distinct definition. What's a blunt wrap? What isn't? What are we prohibiting? What are we allowing?
okay.
And this isn't in this new state law. That's why it's shown as a separate green item, is because we thought if you're looking at this document anyway, you may want to look at these other areas to tighten up your local regs.
Okay. So let's move on, Jackie. Continue. Scroll down to the next green area.
Can I interject, Dr. Lopez? So is it okay for Maureen to maybe take the lead on this and just, instead of duplicating the explanation, she can just go ahead and just explain it straight up, and you guys can decide if you want to go with it or not?
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense because she obviously has the background on each one of these green items. Is that okay with you, Maureen?
Sure. Hopefully I can explain all of these and address them. So if you want to go to the next one, the cigar definition.
But I would
Again,
say, let's, as we go down to each green item, if you could just, say one word or 3 sentences about the purpose of this. Let the 4 of us sort of make sure we all agree so that we know it's going to be incorporated, and we'll go on to the next screen.
Okay.
Okay.
So you're still at the blunt wrap.
We're actually, if you look at the screen, we're at, yes,
Tobacco leaf.
tobacco leaf.
They're at the
Right, so
cigar
I'm-
definition, Maureen, yep.
Yep, under cigar definition, that's just added to the cigar definition. And again, that was for clarity. Just because we find that when things aren't really complete and clear, then when we go to try to enforce something, we can have an issue. So this is just to be clearer that if it's a kit or a roll your own, it should be considered a blunt wrap.
Okay.
So no difference between what we commonly see as a blunt wrap or if it's a kit that has a blunt wrap in it or some other
Okay.
packaging.
Okay, I think we're all in agreement there.
Yep.
Keep going.
So under healthcare institution, a retail establishment that provides an so when the pharmacy, we call it pharmacy ban, but it's really all healthcare institutions and educational institutions are banned from selling tobacco products or nicotine products. So that could be an optician's shop in a BJ's, or it could be a bookstore in a college, that kind of thing. So this was to clear up who's exempt from this pharmacy ban. So it just says establishment that doesn't fall under the regulation by the Board of Registration shall not be considered a healthcare institution. So if you're not regulated as one, you're not going to be banned from selling
what-
tobacco.
Do I read that correctly to say that they can sell them then?
Yeah, and I don't know why they were, I think it has to do with the original, I think it has to do with state law and the definition of a healthcare institution under the state law, and then trying to work that into your pharmacy ban, because your pharmacy ban, in nickname pharmacy ban, is a local regulation, not a state law. So we're trying to make this definition work with the state law, nothing to do with tobacco, but with what's considered a healthcare institution. So
Okay.
it's that
they're
there was a
exempt from-
mismatch there.
They're
So
exempt
we're
from-
just saying, okay, we'll go by the healthcare institution definition that the state has as we address the so-called pharmacy ban.
So because they're
tobacco
exempt, we
sales.
need, and it's not consistent with us, we need to specifically put this in there, so it's clear and obvious.
Just to be clear, yep.
Thank you.
Who's in and who's out, yep. So the next one, rolling papers. Again, we had a very lightweight definition for rolling papers, and this was an opportunity for our TA, our program, to take a look at the rolling paper definition and be very clear about what's in and what's out. And especially because we've seen a lot of flavored rolling papers, and the new state law bans flavor enhancers. So when I go into a store and I see a cigarette, normal cigarette rolling paper, and it says strawberry or bubble gum, I say, sorry, you can't sell that. That's a tobacco enhancer, because if somebody rolls loose tobacco in that, then it flavors the tobacco, and tobacco enhancers are banned under the new state law. But we've had a lot of new products in addition to the old rolling papers that you might have seen in stores over the years. So this definition would say, we don't really care what it's made out of. You can make it out of hemp, or you can make it out of whatever. If it's used to roll tobacco or weed or whatever it is, we're considering that under this new definition. We're considering that a rolling paper, and it will be covered under the law that says no flavor enhancers. So right now, when I'm seeing hemp wraps, I'm trying to decide, gee, does a hemp wrap fall under rolling papers? And is that a flavor enhancer and therefore banned or not? So we're trying to clear that up and make it clear for us, and especially make it clear for our retailers, because they ask, can I sell these? And so we need to make sure we're clear on what's included in the enhancement definition for rolling papers.
Okay, sounds good.
So I just had a quick question in regards to this one. It's a little confusing. I see where you're going with it for the flavor enhancers. Are we adding that? This definition just talks about rolling papers, not any kind of flavored rolling papers.
So it says rolling papers, sheets, rolls, tubes, wraps, leaves that do not contain nicotine, and that's used for selling, or I'm sorry, used for rolling cigarettes either by hand or roll your own machine. So
Right.
So it relates to flavor and, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe it's, I know this is further down as well, this is noted, so this definition reads fine, but it doesn't, the part that goes on relates to flavor enhancers is the part that I'm getting confused.
Yeah, I get, you know, I agree with you on that. So the definitions are tricky because we do a whole, everything is defined under definitions in the beginning of the reg. And we try to define everything because then later we're going to go and say, oh, and by the way, this is allowed or this is banned or this is, you know, whatever it is. So yeah, I wish I had thought of that question earlier.
So, you know, and this is for further down the roll on this.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be in favor of banning rolling papers or machines strictly because marijuana is legalized and is used medicinally by a lot of folks. So I don't know why we would not allow them to have a mechanism in town where they could buy those rolling papers. Again, this is a discussion for further down the regs where it talks about that, but is that kind of where we're going with this definition to try to?
Yeah, I think it's not clear. So what we're really trying to do here is, so rolling papers are allowed. I don't know if anybody, Malden did ban rolling papers 100 years ago when that was allowed and it's grandfathered in, but I don't know any other community that's banned rolling papers. So rolling papers are allowed. So somebody smoking weed can still buy rolling papers. The tricky part is the new state law banned flavor enhancers. So now when we see rolling papers, I'm using that term loosely, but when we see rolling papers in a store, gee, are those being used for weed? Are they being used for tobacco? What are they being used for? We're making a guess. Gee, if it's a paper, old-fashioned rolling paper, maybe it's being used just for tobacco, but we know that's not true. It's also being used for weed. So yeah, so unflavored, allowed. Then we have new hemp wraps, which are kind of rolling papers made out of hemp. So they're not really papers, but a rolling paper type product made out of hemp. So those are allowed as long as they're not flavored. So now it was very clear, or we felt it was very clear, that if a rolling paper, old-fashioned rolling paper, was flavored, you know, strawberry, whatever, then that would be banned because that was flavoring your tobacco. Now we have all these hemp wraps, but what are these hemp, just like the rolling papers, what are hemp wraps being used for? They could be used for both, tobacco and marijuana. So we're not banning any unflavored hemp wraps or even considering it. And this is trying to make that clear, but we're banning, I mean, unless a community wanted to do that, but again, only Malden.
I think I'm on board now. I think I see where you're
Okay.
going. So this essentially is just saying, no, this is good and we're defining it.
Yes. If it's flavored, no. If it's unflavored, it's allowed. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So now I'm on E, tobacco, we're in the sales permit section. So that word indoor was just added because what we're saying is you can't sell these products out on the street. You can't have a cart in front of your store. You can't sell, we've seen cigarettes being sold at a flea market. So we're saying this has to be an indoor, non-mobile location. No cigarette carts. It's got to be a brick and mortar store. That's just a word added there.
Good.
Okay, let's see. Oh, this is just saying So your permit, your Board of Health permit, tobacco permit, and all these stores that sell a tobacco nicotine product, your permit has to be posted where an inspector can go in and see it readily. Or at least ask for it. It might be in a binder, but ask for it and have it be handed to you pretty readily. And this what is adding, all DOR permits also should be displayed prominently. So DOR is the Department of Revenue permit. So it's just adding that. We would like our retailers to post those right, because they have to have them right along with the Board of Health permit. And it's not state law, it's just if you want to help out the inspection and move that along quickly, these should be posted readily. So you set with that?
Yeah.
Most stores do. They do that already.
Yeah.
Okay, tobacco permit, sales permit will not be renewed if the permit has sold tobacco. Oh yeah, this is pretty standard. It's just not in your regs that if a tobacco retailer has had a sale to a minor 3 different times in the previous permit year, then let me see, and the time period to appeal has expired. That doesn't make sense. A tobacco permit will not be renewed if the permit, yeah. So if they've had those violations and they've not appealed, their permit will not be renewed.
I have a quick question about that. So
Sure.
does that mean they will never be able to sell tobacco again? Or does it mean that they have to stop selling for a period of time, maybe a year or 2, and then go back to selling it?
Okay, Dave, that's a good question. It says will not be renewed. So if it's not renewed, then their permit would be, not active, and it would go back to the Board of Health, and then it would fall under your permit cap regulation. So you'd have you'd have an available permit that would fall under that permit cap regulation.
So can they now come back in about a year and reapply for it?
So if you have a basic cap and not the reducing cap, then I believe they could. They'd be like any other business that could come back, knock on your door and say, I'd like a tobacco permit application, fill it out, and if there aren't any other issues with it, then as long as you had a permit available. If you adopt the reducing cap language, which says, it's more complex than this, and I'd have to read it again, but anyway, it says basically, if a store closes or somebody loses their permit because they didn't renew in time, or whatever it might be, and that permit becomes available, being held by the Board of Health, then that permit would be permanently gone instead of you holding on to it for 30 days or whatever's in your, your permit cap language.
Correct.
So if I understand correctly, Maureen, this person who has violated the
Underage sale to minor violation, yeah, 3
and did not
times.
appeal it.
Yep.
They've lost their permit.
Yep.
But if there is a basic cap, they can
Yep.
reapply on a first come, first serve kind of basis.
I believe so, because there's nothing in there that says they can't. So
Okay,
I
that
think
was
they'd
my
be like any other
understanding.
business. Mhm.
That was what I thought. I just was trying to clarify.
Yeah, I think, yep.
They basically have to start at square one again.
But it's the same violator that violated 3 times, and then they're
Yeah.
coming back.
That's if
So
we
you-
adopt the basic cap.
Right, and
Correct.
right now you have the basic cap. If you were to change to the reducing cap, then
Then they can't.
once he or she couldn't renew, then that permit would disappear.
But if they had to apply again as a first-time permit applicant, there's a process to that, right? They could still be evaluated and denied. So it's not like they'd automatically get it back if they applied again. Right?
So, yeah, I'd have to ask Ade, what's your process? I know in some communities, they look at that application and say, is there any reason that this should be denied?
Yeah. If you have
Yeah.
a basis for denial, yes.
Yeah.
But based on this, there will be no basis for denial. we can't say that because you had 3 violations in your previous business, you can't have this business again after a year or 2. That would be difficult.
Because it's not in the regulation.
Correct.
Yeah.
Maybe we
Now we
should,
can put something in the regulation that tackles that.
maybe we should just pause on this one, because I think in number 8, there are 2 different options. And depending on which one we go with, we could then revisit number 7 here to see if we want to put, there needs to be a 1 year or 2 year, period before you can reapply. But that would only be valid under, I think, the basic cap as opposed to the diminishing cap. So let's pause on 7. Let's make a decision on 8 and then go back. So Maureen, can you describe, the options under basic cap versus reducing cap?
So basic cap is, and I don't know why the number isn't in here, because I believe Reading selected a set number at the time that you adopted the basic cap. And so if it was 7, what is it a day?
15. I think.
15. So if you have 15 permits available, and that's the maximum number you can have. So somebody comes into a day's office and says, I'd like a tobacco permit application. Sorry, we're full up, nothing available at this time. If somebody goes out of business, then the permit, and they're a tobacco retailer, they go out of business for whatever reason, lose their lease, they retire, whatever it might be. They can't physically, they can't transfer that permit to another person. But the idea is to safeguard the value of maybe the building that they're in. If there's a convenience store, and most people don't want to have a convenience store unless they have lottery license and tobacco license. So to kind of protect the value, we said, okay, as long as somebody else applies, and I think yours is 30 days, wherever it is on here, applies within 30 days, then they're kind of applying for that license, that permit that was just given up. If the time goes by, then they don't get, if it goes by that grace period, trying to read yours, too many versions of this.
It's 30 days.
Yeah. So that permit is now open to anybody, not just the person in that, somebody coming into that building, but anybody in the community. So as long as there is still a permit available, then a day could issue a permit to a new tobacco retailer somewhere else in town after that 30 days is up. If you had what we call the reducing cap, then once that person retired or, lost their lease or whatever, for whatever reason, closed down their shop, so their permit isn't being used, that permit becomes permanently unavailable. And now you have 14. And if somebody else a couple of years later, gives up their, or, loses, they have a revocation, or, for whatever reason, they no longer have that permit, that would become permanently unavailable, and you'd be reducing your cap to 15, 14, 13.
13. So my quick question is, can we, if the board decides, can they adopt both? Can they do the basic cap and the reducing cap? And does that make sense at all?
No, you do one or the other. So the basic cap says you've got 15, that's the most you can ever have. And the reducing cap says anybody who gives up their permit for whatever reason, we'll call it, gives up, they go out of business or whatever, then once that 30-day kind of grace period for somebody else to apply, once that's up, that permit is permanently unavailable.
Okay, so this is what I'm thinking. So if somebody leaves, they go out of business, and within 30 days, nobody shows up to get the permit, then we can go to the diminishing cap automatically. So that's my thought when I meant, when I was saying that we can adopt both.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I'm not sure how you would.
But it's
how-
something to think about.
Yeah, yeah, how you would word that. Yeah, that's tricky wording. Yeah, we have language
I-
for basic cap and language for reducing cap.
I mean, I think the issue here is, do we want to put Reading on a trajectory over the next few years to essentially ban the sale of tobacco products in the town? Because that's what a reducing cap would eventually do. Versus maintain, the 15 permits and just not let it expand, just not let the number of places selling tobacco expand beyond 15. I mean, it's a key kind of philosophy or decision about what we want in the town. And so that's really the question between this basic cap and further down. Jackie, if you scroll a little bit further down, this advanced cap under D, that basically over time will eliminate the sale of tobacco products because we keep pulling permits out as they become inactive. So the question is, which do we want?
May I ask a question?
I will take one question. We don't usually engage the public during the board deliberations, but if you have a brief question, you can certainly ask it.
Well, thank you very much. I found out about this meeting and, I'm a retailer and so I was hoping to participate and have dialogue just like the whole board, but my question is, I don't know why you'd want to have a reduced cap because then you would be limiting business opportunities in the town of Reading. But that's basically my point on this, but I have other things that I would like to discuss too in this whole process.
Right. I guess maybe I would ask Aday this question, which is, we're in the process right now of trying to come up with a proposed regulation. Once we come up with a proposed regulation and it's been reviewed, would we have the option of having a public hearing on the regulation to solicit comments and feedback, after which we could then take that feedback and go back and rethink. But I think we're at the stage right now where we're trying to adopt a proposed regulation to even have a hearing, because we haven't made these decisions yet. Would that make sense going forward?
Absolutely, that's something we can do.
Okay.
And if I can just say as a point of clarification, it's only on these green points because we have no control over the state regulation.
Right.
Am I
I
correct?
think, yes, I think we're going to incorporate the yellow comments. We're going to make decisions on the green, and that's going to be our proposed regulation.
Right.
We could then have a hearing.
Yeah.
And, solicit comments from the town, people who want to participate, and then take those comments back and, potentially revise or not the regulation based on that. So, if someone had a suggestion or a comment in a public hearing that contradicted state law, we wouldn't adopt it, obviously. Yes, Kevin.
Just a couple of questions for Aday and Maureen. First of all, are all 15 of our permits out there Aday, or do we have available ones?
Yes,
They're okay.
they're all taken at the
Is there a
moment.
waiting list currently?
No waiting list.
No waiting list. Okay. And Maureen, what are the number of violations that we've had over the last, let's say, 3 years? Do you know off the top of your head?
Let's
like it's
see,
one.
one or two at the most. So the last round of compliance checks I did, there was one violation. I think right after COVID and when we first started in the first round that I did, after the new law had been passed, I think you might have had two. Reading had very, very good compliance, both
I
in terms of
recall that.
inspections and compliance checks.
Yeah, in light of that, I'd be more in favor of the basic cap. Just because I wouldn't want to handcuff a future board with an advanced cap when there's not an issue. You know, if we had a widespread issue where this was going on and people are losing their permits because of multiple violations, 3 or more throughout the year, and it's becoming an issue, I could see then moving to an advanced cap because it would kind of make more sense. But I'm usually of the mindset where I don't want to handcuff future boards for things I can't necessarily think of right now that might come up for reasons why you'd want to have a basic cap in there. So that'd just be my 2 cents on this one.
And I think if I could just add, I think what most of our communities look at when they're thinking about this issue is density, and where do they fall in terms of store density. So Reading is kind of in the middle of the pack. Just throw these are going to be round numbers for you, but I think Winchester has a density of 0.35, so there are 0.35 stores for every 1,000 residents. Melrose is around 0.42, so 0.42 stores, less than half a store for every 1,000 residents. Stoneham and Reading were both around 0.7, so more than Winchester and Melrose, but not more than state average for sure. And then Malden and Medford are both right around one store for every 1,000 residents. And Wakefield was a little bit higher, I think 1.1 store per every 1,000 residents. So you're kind of in the middle of the pack. So, density isn't a horrible issue here, although we do know that density is an issue relative to any substances. And so the more stores you have where these products are displayed, the more normalized they get, the more access people have and so on. So the regular, density issues.
What about towns in that cluster of communities you listed? Have any adopted the reducing cap, or are they all sort of at the basic cap?
So I think Malden has a reducing cap, and I think Wakefield has a reducing cap. And they have a slight, Wakefield chose a slightly longer grace, I call it a grace period when somebody turns in a license. I think theirs is 60 days, but it can only be for the address where the other permit was given up. So again, it was kind of to protect that we'll say that building or that building owner. Everybody's a little bit different. These permit caps are all a little bit different.
So do you all agree on basic or reducing cap? What do you think?
It's hard because I'll just say what I think. I think as a physician and as someone concerned about the health of a population, the reducing cap is more attractive. On the other hand, a limit of 15 does not sound like a lot, and we're making a lot of other changes at the same time, and it just might be more than making these changes might be too far a place to go, and there is the business concerns. So a compromise could be reducing the number of permits from 15 to 12 or something, as a way to, but still be a hard cap at 12 as opposed to going to 0 over the next few years.
So Rick, you'd be talking about doing a combination. Having
I'll be
the
talking about doing, yes, making the basic cap 12.
12, and as they get
And-
turned in 15 through 12, the kind of
Well-
an advanced cap, we're taking those ones away, but then it's reverting to a basic once we hit 12, essentially.
Right. So there would not be, it would not go below 12 in subsequent years.
That sounds like a good compromise, Rick. Thank you.
We'd have to be real careful with how you word something like that. You know, you may want to have some more leniency, for example, on the 30-day period for expiring permits because of something like that, until you reach that cap. You know what I mean?
Right.
You don't want technicalities to kind of foul things up, and that's where I always side on what don't we know when we pull this lever? What effects are going to happen? You know, human error is going to happen down the road too. So I think if you loosen up the time period, make it longer until you hit 12, and then it can revert back to 30 days. You know, certainly, I think that would work well with your compromise, just to ensure something doesn't fall through the cracks mistakenly.
I
Okay,
think that
then-
sounds like a good compromise on
Yeah.
all sides.
agree.
And the fact that we don't have a wait list, I mean, this might happen naturally anyway. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Because there's not a whole lot of demand for more establishments to have, you know. So why don't we go with that? Because I'm seeing a lot of nods, and it would require a day, you know, or Maureen to somehow, you know, revise these two options into that option of, you know, a cap of 12 as permits turn over.
And 60-day grace.
Yes.
Yeah, how would you do that, Maureen? Would you write it up as like an advanced cap down to 12 that reverts to a basic at that point? I mean, just curious how you work.
Yeah.
Just following up. You don't have to be exact, just a ballpark.
Yeah. Well, I will certainly rely on Cheryl Sabara, who earned her law degree, so she can help draft this. But it would really be the basic cap, because we're not going to make, but with a reduced number. So right now we have a basic cap with a number of 15. Now, if as people, you know, give up, surrender their permits, it looks like a reducing cap. We get down to 15, 14, 13, and now we're at 12. Then it's a cap. It's not a reducing cap any longer. It's just a basic cap. So yeah, Cheryl will figure that out.
Okay.
So that it doesn't look like you're going to keep reducing all the permits that get surrendered. But it stops at 12.
And just
Yeah.
another quick comment on this.
Look at that figured out.
No, I mean, that makes perfect sense. But another quick comment in regards to this, and this is probably I think this is further down in the regulation. So there's paint the scenario. There's been a violation now 3 times within the permit year, so the permit's not going to be renewed. They have a 6-month period of time to go ahead and try to come before us to change that. In that same 6-month period of time, would that permittee be able to sell the permit?
No, so the permit goes back to a day, or, you know, actually the Board of Health, but the Health
No,
Department.
not before. This is during the appeals process. So this hasn't, we haven't gone past the appeals process. Is it-
Oh, okay, I see, I'm sorry, I see what you're saying. So
within-
during the
still
appeal
within the
process,
appeal process.
can the retailer still sell?
Yeah,
Yes, so normally, a retailer can sell, I know with a DOR suspension, once they file that appeal, then they're back to selling until that appeal is heard. So I've never had, in any of my communities, I've never had a situation where a retailer didn't renew, didn't pay his renewal fee and therefore couldn't sell cigarettes. I've never had that actually happen. Have you? What would you
And here,
do?
it's never happened before.
Well, no,
Yeah.
this is more that they've had 3 violations.
The violations, right, so I'm trying to follow
And as-
that. What would you
as
do
that
if you?
comes up, we're not going to allow them to renew it. And then they have a 6-month appeals process where they can come before us to try to plead their case. My question would be, if at that point, the owner says, you know what, I'm done with this business, I'm not dealing with this anymore, I'm just gonna sell it, would they be allowed to sell it and transfer that? Or would it, because we were putting on this basic cap down to 12, if they're number 13, 14, or 15, would they have to surrender it? Could they sell it?
This- I see, this is what I think.
What we're talking about right now in this compromise, I'm just trying to.
Yeah. So
Wrap my-
once that business person says, forget it, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna sell the business or whatever, then that appeal has ended. He's not in business any longer. So we're not waiting for any appeal time to pass, if I'm understanding your scenario correctly.
Okay, so
So-
it wouldn't be surrendering the permit could transfer still.
Yep, nowadays got a permit that he can issue to someone.
But I'm saying could transfer in a seal, so it could, to a specific person who's buying the business.
Yeah,
Not
they,
not a waiting list person.
yeah, right, that's right. Okay, we
Okay.
try to carefully not call it a transfer because that means from owner to owner, and it really has to go back to a day and then out to an owner. But you're
we
right,
have
it
a
would be
mechanism that
reserved for
allows
that,
to happen.
for that site. Yep,
That location, correct.
that location. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so so we've decided number 8 in terms of this combination. I just quickly want to go back to number 7, the person who has 3 violations and the appeal is expired and we're not going to renew the permit. I think we need to put a time frame, as we were talking about earlier, after which he or she could reapply for a permit, given that there might be some permits available. And I'm thinking 1 year as a kind of, grace period, or a kind of period where, the permit has been not renewed. He or she can apply, but would need to wait 1 year before reapplying. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes.
And they need to demonstrate some kind of knowledge in, retail, tobacco retailing. They need to show something that they've been trained or retrained before they get that new permit.
Okay.
That
So,
sounds reasonable.
yeah, why don't we just add that subsequently? We can add the 1 year as another sentence in number 7, along with, some retraining, or I don't know if there's training offered, but perhaps attestation they've read the regulations. Okay, let's move down to number 10. I think we've sort of already incorporated a lot of discussion about the sale of the business. I think the one thing that, Kevin, you mentioned was maybe in 10B, saying 60 days, 60 calendar days to make sure there's enough leeway there.
Yeah, it's kind of a tricky one. Do you want it to revert back to 30 upon reaching 12 permits? And do we want to bother trying to write that up, or just call it 60 and just leave it alone? That'd be the only thing I would question on that.
I'm okay with 60 myself. Seems reasonable. Okay, is there anything else on number 10, or can we maybe go back to Maureen for number 11, the retail density? Let's go to number 11.
Okay, actually, this is, yeah, I don't think this is meant to say retail density. I think this is proximity. I think that's a mistake. So what you have in Reading is a proximity regulation, and it says something to the effect of no new business tobacco, can be within 500 feet of a public or private elementary, secondary school, so on. So we call that a proximity ban. And what we're trying to do is just keep tobacco retailers, away from existing ones are not affected. This is only new ones. And just to keep them from opening across from, a school. And in Reading, you actually adopted 1,000 feet. So this shouldn't even say 500. I believe, Ade, you have 1,000 feet in your, I don't have your original regulation in front of me. But I think this is a mistake. It should say proximity, and you have 1,000 feet now.
Just to put things in perspective. So we have 5,280 feet in 1 mile. So, I mean, I would think we can do 2,000 feet if we're trying to discourage the kids from buying cigarettes and tobacco products.
And so just to reiterate what I said before, a new tobacco product sale permit would not be something on a sale of a business, correct? That would not be considered a new permit if the
Right.
permit is part of that
Right.
sale.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd love to see a map. I'd love to see an overlay for this one of what a 500, 1,000, 2,000, what it all kind of looks like. Just purely from a informational standpoint, more than anything.
And it's interesting that you suggested that, and I think it's a good suggestion, because most of the communities that I know of, all of the other communities in my catchment area, most of the communities I know adopted 500. I don't know where that came from. It's 500 feet, 500 feet, 500 feet. But when Reading did it, somebody on the board at the time looked at, I think, I can't remember the name of the drive that goes by the high school.
Birch
They
Meadow?
looked at that.
Birch Meadow Drive,
Yeah, Birch Meadow. There's a high school, then there's an elementary school, and maybe the Y, I forget what's along that
And middle
stretch.
school as
and
well,
a
too,
middle
yeah.
school.
Oh, okay, yep. And they wanted to make sure that a store couldn't open up in that area near all those schools and Y and so on. And so somebody did something, measured something, and that's where they came up with 1,000. Tried to keep it out to, further away from Main Street or whatever. I can't remember the exact discussion, but it had to do with Birch Meadow Drive and the schools and the.
It's funny. I wonder if there's a commercial property down on Main Street, not very far from that entrance. I wonder if that was try to encircle that business into it.
Yeah, I wish I had a better recollection of that exact discussion, but that board did select 1,000 feet to try to keep it away from that, highly school dense area.
Sure. Okay.
But that doesn't mean in this round, it shouldn't be looked at again and something else suggested.
I mean, I think if it's been 1,000 feet, I'm fine with that. I'm actually a little bit confused about 11B. Because to me, if you're limiting the number of permits and they're not close to a school, I mean, do I really care if there's 3 tobacco retailers, in a row? I mean,
Yeah.
This is not like I don't know what the utility of that is in.
Yeah. It's the retailer who should be concerned because of competition, and is he really going to be able to make money if he's next door to another store that also has tobacco? Yeah, that might be excessive. I don't know. I'm ambivalent about that.
Yeah.
I know Stoneham does have that, no new stores, and theirs is much stricter within, I can't remember, I think it's like 25 feet of another store. Like they just didn't want stores back to back or side by side. And
I guess we'll find out during the information session.
So I would propose we just eliminate B and C and just stick with the 1,000 feet from the schools. How do other people feel about that?
I'm rereading them.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be the businesses that may have input into that. I don't think, maybe in a larger city where everything's congregated into one small neighborhood, like all of the tobacco, that might cause some changes in the way that the town behaves, but I don't think that's a problem here.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is we can eliminate B and C and go with A as written. You want to, Jackie, you want to scroll down to the next F?
F. So I wish this wasn't highlighted. It's confusing. If this is confusing for me, Ade, do you already have a ban in Reading, no smoking bars?
I believe so.
Yeah, so I don't know why this is showing up in green. If it's in green, that's something you need to consider. If you already have it, you don't need to consider it unless you want to remove the ban, which I can't imagine anybody
No.
wanting to.
Yeah, I don't think.
Was this maybe just put in Maureen because we defined what a smoking bar was in definitions?
Oh, yeah, maybe. I think I think it makes it more confusing for us trying to review this tonight. Well, how about this? So we'll double check. We'll make sure, and I believe you do, but we'll make sure you do or you don't. And then, because anything that you decide to adopt that's in yellow, public hearing is not required because you're not really changing anything. That is the law that we're enforcing. Anything in green, if you decide to consider it and have it written into a new draft, then you've said you're going to have a public hearing about it. So before we do a new draft, we can make sure that is, that you don't, that you already have a ban. If you don't have a ban on smoking bars, then do you want this? Do you want to consider a ban on smoking bars?
And so during the information session, we have to show exactly what we're crossing out, what we're adopting, things like that. We have to give all the information so everybody's on the same page. Is that accurate? Okay.
Yep.
So for example, Dr. Lopez was proposing to eliminate 11B and C. During the information session, the 11B and C will be shown on the screen, and then the public can, chime in and tell us what they think about it. Is that correct?
No, I think since B and C was not in the original regulation and it's not part of the state law, and we decided not to do it, for all of those reasons, we wouldn't have to show B and C. We would only have to show those changes where we have a local policy option.
I thought B was in the original regulation.
Because it's green, I'm assuming it wasn't.
Okay.
I think the green stuff may be a combo of what is in there now and what we should be thinking about talking about changing.
Yeah, it's confusing. I'm sorry. It's confusing. So I think what would be helpful to me would be to have your language and then below it, the suggested language. So you see what it is now and a change. And I agree. I think this is a combo of suggested changes in what you need to make a decision about. But it's that combo of what you have and additional strength to it. And it's confusing to me. And I've done many of these.
So it's 8:30. We've been working on this for an hour, and we're probably maybe halfway through, about halfway through. And it sounds like we also maybe want to go back and do some revisions of what was shaded and so forth. So I would propose, because we want to get through our agenda, the rest of our agenda, maybe we should stop at this point and, come back on our next meeting on February 2nd in 3 weeks and pick up at G here and any other items. And I think we could probably get through the rest of the items at the next meeting. Sounds right.
Sounds reasonable.
Yep.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Maureen, we keep reeling you back in.
That's, no, there's no urgency on any of this with one exception, and it's not that urgent, but it's just something we have to deal with. And that is whenever there is a sale to a minor, then under the new state law, there was a change that even for a first violation, there has to be a suspension. Second and third violations, your local regs match state law. But for a first violation, they just added this wrinkle that said any first violation sale to a minor has to have a suspension between 1 and 30 days. And that is voted on by the Board of Health. So that, that's just something that you will have to do. If I do a round of compliance checks and somebody sells, then you're just going to have to decide if it's a first violation sale to a minor, you're going to have to decide, is this, do you want to give them 1 day or 3 days or 5 days or 15 days or whatever?
Well, I think
And
we
if you're-
did that.
And you did that,
recently.
right, and you'd have to continue doing that. So the idea was to get a set number so that you wouldn't have to vote on that every time there's a round of compliance
see.
checks and there's some
Okay.
violations, yep.
Okay.
And that's fine.
think-
I don't think you guys mind if you have to vote. If I do a round of compliance checks, somebody sells and I present that information to a day and he presents it to you and you vote the number of days suspension.
I think what Maureen, you were looking for is, did we have it on our agenda, Rick, to vote for this regulation tonight, the changes to it? Because it's,
No.
Okay, so we
No.
can vote for the state changes tonight.
No,
We shouldn't if it wasn't on it as a vote.
right. It wasn't on it as a vote. I mean, I think that what I'm viewing the time frame here is February, we complete our review and decisions. March, we'll probably get comments from general counsel and sort of formalize what we intend to do or would like to do. And then maybe in April, we could have a public hearing on the proposed changes that are not mandated by state law, but, local changes that we're proposing. And then the subsequent month, we would make, we would vote on the final reg. So,
Would it make sense just to speed up part of this to put on for the February meeting, a vote to update the regulations to meet the state regulations that have been given to us, the yellow, in other words,
yeah, we could do that
and then do the kind of timeline that you just laid out for the green.
and do the green. Yeah, because yes, that would be reasonable.
Okay.
Could plan to do that.
And actually, Kevin, most of my communities have done that, kind of separated it into two parts and updated the regs to match state law, so that's clean, and did vote on the set number of days though, because that helps you guys. And it helps me when there's a violation. I can tell the retailer also, in addition to a fine, there's a 3-day, suspension or whatever. And then they consider new, any new policies they want to add to what they already have.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Good. Thank you, Maureen.
So I'll ask Cheryl Sabara for a new draft with just the update of the state law updates. And that'll be clean, and you'll have that for next meeting. And then we can, work on getting a better draft of the things that you've already discussed, ready for the second half of this green discussion.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
Maureen.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. You've spent a lot of time on this and I appreciate it.
Have a
Have
good
have a
night.
good rest of your meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Kevin, anything to report from the coalition or?
Unfortunately, they didn't, they had some staffing issues for the last meeting and they had to cancel it
Okay.
till the last minute. The next meeting, they didn't have one, obviously, over the break. So the next meeting's not until end of this month, excuse me, last Wednesday of this month.
Okay, great. A day, monthly updates.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Lopez. I'll start with 365 Ash Street. So the occupant is currently at Blueberry Hill Rehab with no plans for discharge at this time. His sons are still working on guardianship, and the plan is for the occupant to remain in the rehab center until the guardianship is figured out. And the police department will continue to do their daily, weekly checks on the area. The shared services grant. So as you may recall, the towns of North Andover, Reading, North Reading, Linfield, and the city of Averill secured a public health excellence grant for shared services in the amount of $297,200 per year. Payment will be in 4 installments per year, and the contract will be in effect through June 30th, 2023, with options for renewal through June 30th, 2033. So options for a 10-year renewal. The next steps in the process will be to submit a revised public health excellence budget plan. We did that already. Complete a baseline capacity assessment. We did that already. At the moment, we're waiting on the first of 4 payment installments to be disbursed. And once we receive the funds, we will hire staff and implement the shared services program.
All good.
Yep.
Sounds good.
The next item is the after action report from the Reading Fire Department. I know that at the last meeting, you asked me to get a copy of the report from the fire department. At this point, it's not ready. I spoke with the fire chief, and he's still working on it. And I'll make sure I get it to you once it is completed. On the hiring, let's see. Okay, so we made an offer to Cassidy Keegan to be our new administrative secretary for the health department. She accepted the offer, and her start date is January 23rd, 2023.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Great.
everything goes well this time around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some new programs that we're putting together. The health department, in conjunction with the Reading Coalition for Prevention and Support, will be hosting a free Narcan administration training at the Reading Public Health Library, Library on February 21, 2023. It will be from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. About an hour. So next item on the list is Vision 2020. So the health department will be hosting a vision clinic in conjunction with 2020 On-Site to deliver on-site eye care to town employees, town officials, and their families. So you guys are included. Each comprehensive eye exam includes a high definition retinal scan, near vision test, vision chart, and a private consultation with the doctor. The company will provide updated prescriptions and offer a stylish selection of eyewear that will be available for purchase. This clinic will take place on February 7th, 2023 in the Town Hall parking lot from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. The company accepts all major health and vision insurance plans, and they handle all the paperwork that comes along with it. We don't have to do anything with the paperwork. Employees and officials are encouraged to use their flexible spending account dollars and their wellness account dollars if they have one. The registration link for this event will be posted next week as soon as we get it. And our plan is that if this goes really well, we will look into having a similar vision clinic for our residents. So we think it would be a good idea for the residents
Great.
as well.
Are we getting any kind of a discount off of these prescriptions because we're doing this in bulk here?
Well, just show up and you find out. All right, next item on the list will be the inspections. The month of December was a little slow. People are getting ready for the holidays. So in the month of December, we conducted 6 food establishment inspections, 1 food reinspection. We didn't get any food complaints in December. We had 4 housing complaint inspections, 1 at the Lakeview apartment for a leaky vent in the bathroom, another one at the Trident Properties on Main Street, leaky ceiling and closet. We had a complaint about smell of mothballs at Auburn Street, and sewage backup at Reading Woods condominium. We had 1 trash complaint at 601 Main Street for trash being picked up too early. So with this particular complaint, the complainant didn't like the idea of the trash being picked up around 5:30 a.m. because he felt that they were being too loud, and they woke him up every morning. So he wasn't too happy about that. But we informed him that, if that happens again, he can call the police, and the police will show up. And we exhausted every possible avenue. We talked to the trash company. They kept on making promises. They were going to fix the problem. They didn't do it. And then we got the police department involved. And now he understands that, if they do that again, he can just call the police department and they'll show up.
Because we do have something on the books for the time of that. You can't pick up trash at 5:30 in the morning in Reading.
Correct, we do.
Yeah, okay.
Correct.
Is this a private contractor or is this the town one?
It's a private one.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so we issued 7 temporary food event permits. All the permits were for the Festival of Trees at the Reading Memorial High School. All right, that's it for me. I will now defer to our public health nurse, Mallory, to provide updates on disease surveillance, reporting, and control. Hi, Mallory.
You're
You're
muted.
mute.
Sorry. Okay, so for this week, we currently have 23 active cases of COVID, 4 cases between the ages of 5 and 18, no cases under the age of 5 and 18 years and older. We did have a new death in September that was just reported for COVID. We had 1 case of Vibrio SP. I investigated, it was resolved. It came from a skin culture. They denied touching any water or anything. So, and they said it was already healed when I called them. So I just resolved it. The Ebola outbreak is considered done. So any travelers from Uganda will no longer need contract tracing. We are still holding monthly COVID/flu clinics through VaccinateRx now. The next one will be on the 20th. And that's about all I have.
Thanks, Mallory.
Thank you.
Just on, thank you, Mallory. Just in terms of COVID, I think you've all seen in the news that Middlesex has gone red in terms of being a high risk according to the CDC. Masks are encouraged in public places and in transportation, as well as has always been for immunocompromised or people at risk. And so, I think that is a good idea. We're not mandating, but we're just encouraging the use of masks. It may be something we want to, we may want to get out in social media, just a reminder about encouraging masks, encouraging vaccination, testing, the whole, there's a list. We may want to just do something in the next week or so, just to remind the people we can contact that way about that. Actually, I have been tracking, as you know, the incidents in Reading based on the state data that comes out every Thursday. And so this was back here was last January when we were in the middle of the surge. Our numbers actually, as of today, went down a little bit. It's been pretty flat for a while, which is encouraging. The only other thing I just want to mention is, and I thought I had it up here, but I don't see it. Okay. Hold on one moment. I'm sorry. Okay, I can't do it, but I don't know if anybody saw let me stop sharing my screen here. I saw that the public library was having a series of Wellness Wednesdays. And it was a series of lectures on different wellness issues. I was trying to put up the announcement that I saw, but I can't quite do it. So if people have any questions about that, they may want to just check on the library website. Do you know about that, Ade? Did you see that announcement?
Yes, it's we just hired a new wellness coordinator
Okay.
at the senior center, and
Okay.
that was what they put together.
Okay, great. Is that it for the monthly report?
Oh,
Yes.
Also, I'm doing blood pressure clinics at the library every second Monday of the month.
Okay.
By the way.
Oh, there it is.
That's great. Thanks, Mallory.
That's good. Okay. Okay, next, in terms of public comment, yes, Dan, just in terms of public comment, you have 3 minutes and just give your name and your street address and shoot.
Sure, my name is Dan Dewar. I own the Reading Quick Stop at 519 Main Street, and I also live upstairs. I just wanted to make one mention, and I'll be brief. I'm in favor of keeping the B on the retail, number 11, because I as a retailer, I would be a little reluctant to have competition right next door too. So I would like that in there. And in terms of the public forum that you anticipate having, I assume that you'll be inviting all the retailers that sell tobacco to that forum. Just want to make sure of that. And I used to really see all of these meetings. I used to be I subscribed to the meeting notices that they would automatically send you an email when there's a notice. I think I got dropped when they changed the website. But I intend on getting back on that again. But you guys do a great job, and I do appreciate when I'm able to participate in some of this stuff. So thank you.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. We'll definitely notify you and the other retailers
Yeah.
when it's time for the information session.
Thank you very much. I'm going to drop off. Everybody have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Good night, Dan.
Good night. Narcissa, do you have a comment?
I do.
well?
Good evening. I find it discouraging that you're actually considering encouraging masks again, given their ineffectivity and general overall lack of safety for the user, whoever puts them on, but encouraging I can live with. What I am not understanding is mentioning encouraging vaccination, given all the information that's now coming out on the ill effects, and that's at the very least, not to mention all the cardiac issues that are occurring nationwide, no, worldwide, sorry. So I'm not sure why, given all this information, you'd still be encouraging these poisonous vaccinations.
Okay, thank you for your comment. We obviously have a difference of opinion, but in terms of the next agenda, the agenda for our February meeting will obviously continue the tobacco regulation discussion.
But I'm sorry, it's not just a difference of opinion. It's not just my opinion here. I'm actually, that is what is occurring. That is feedback that is not just mine. So I'm trying to understand how you're justifying promoting something that is definitely on the table for, even by the CDC, and by the way, at this point, for debate as far as whether in fact, number one, it's proven not to be effective in preventing COVID. And number two, it's hazardous. And this is out there. This is not just Narcissa Lyons telling you this. So
If I may interrupt,
Yes.
Narcissa, please back up your claims. Send me documentation. You have my email address. Send me a credible website you're getting your information from. I'll present it to the board and then we'll go from there. Right now, you're making all these claims. You have nothing to back your claims up. So if you're going to be on this platform making claims like this, we need to make sure that those claims are from a credible source. So please send me your information and then I'll present it to the board and we'll go from there. Thank you very much.
Sure, Dan.
So our next agenda, again, will be the tobacco regulations and whatever else comes up in the interim, I guess. Any other last minute comments from the board?
And we're gonna be talking about the RFP again too, right?
We will be, yes. Yeah, we'll have a follow-up on that as well.
And then we also have the plastic, what do you call it? The thing that got approved at the select board meeting for the
Plastic
plastic-
bags?
Containers.
Yeah,
Containers.
plastic
Oh,
containers.
yes, food
So-
containers.
Yes, we have to talk about the implementation of that. Even though
Oh,
it got approved, it needs to be implemented. So we need to discuss that at the February meeting as well.
Okay. And Ade, do you know if the select board submitted, they were supposed to submit to the state legislature our petition. Do you know if that happened?
I can check with town council and report
Okay, the
back
next
to you
time.
at the next meeting.
Okay, great.
According to the town manager, when I was speaking to him at that vote, he was going to make sure they took it up ASAP once they started meeting again. I believe the legislature is back in session now.
Okay, great.
So he had it all laid out and had it on a fast track. As
Great.
fast as the state can be, that is.
Okay. There's nothing else. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Paula, roll call, Paula,
Yes.
Rick, yes. All right, good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night,
Thank
thank
you.
you.